If I were to ask you for your favourite Nintendo 64 games, what would you say? Maybe you grew up playing Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, or The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. For a lot of people though, one of the highlights of the console was Star Fox 64, or Lylat Wars depending on where you're from. If there's one thing that I think all Star Fox fans can agree upon, it's that this game is an absolute gem. But why is this the case? Why do people remember Star Fox 64 so fondly, more so than any of its predecessors and successors alike? And to add to that point, why is the Star Fox franchise eternally stuck in a loop of recreating the same formula that it defined? To put it in the simplest way possible, Star Fox 64 is just a really good game. Wanna know why? Well, I'm FibreOpticBroadbean, and this is the perfect simplicity of Star Fox 64.
I see him up ahead. Let's rock and roll!
What Star Fox 64 immediately greets you with is action. The first mission of the game, Corneria, functions perfectly as a tutorial that is both newcomer friendly and a challenge to veterans alike. So how does it achieve this? Well, one of the key mechanics of Star Fox 64 is its branching paths. Many of the game's missions have multiple objectives, and completing each of these will put you on a different planet. Typically, one of these objectives tends to be harder than the other, and this becomes immediately apparent right from the beginning. On your first time playing through Corneria, you're thrown straight into the deep end, waves of enemies swarming you, obstacles to fly around, teammates in peril, the full shebang. Eventually, it gets to a point where Falco is being attacked by some enemies. In what is a pretty seamless integration of a tutorial, Peppy tells you to boost towards the bad guys and take them out. On your first playthrough though, this might prove to be a pretty difficult task, and it's likely that Falco's ship will get shot down. After this, the mission does continue on as normal, you eventually reach a boss and move on to the next level, Meteo. This is the easy route, and is a pretty simple task for a newer player to complete. However, when you return to Corneria having played through the rest of the game, it's likely that you'll be able to save Falco with your newfound skills. He'll then, kinda reluctantly thank you.
I guess I should be thankful.
And then you'll see some archways ahead of you. If you successfully fly through all of these, Falco will compliment you on your flying and lead the way after seeing one of Andross's henchmen flying past. This is where the mission branches off. Instead of going straight on as you would normally, Falco takes you through a waterfall onto an alternative path, and honestly, I think this is genius. The way this mission is set out means that a newcomer is taught the mechanics of the game through the guidance of Peppy and the rest of the team in a relatively simple level, while a more experienced player can take on harder objectives and have fun taking down as many enemies as possible to rack up their score. That's another thing that makes Star Fox 64 so great. Its score system, or more broadly speaking, its replayability. At the end of each playthrough, you're given the total score you've accumulated from all the enemies you've killed, and if you bested some of your previous attempts, you'll end up on the leaderboard. This is the perfect incentive to refine your gameplay and keeps you coming back to try and improve upon your score. The motivation doesn't even stop there though, as if you get a high enough score on each mission, for example 150 points or more in Corneria, you'll be awarded with a medal. Some of these are brutal to get, and I must confess, I never really got good enough at the game to get the vast majority of them, but it is a really fun challenge for the more skilled players out there. I think the only medal I did end up ever getting was the one in Katina, which I'm pretty sure is a notoriously easy one to get, but while we're on the subject, that's gotta be one of my favourite missions in the game. The main reason as to why that's the case is because it marks the first appearance of Starwolf in the main campaign.
Can't let you do that, Star Fox.
Here you're thrust into an all-range 4-on-4 dogfight against Wolf and his gang, where you have to take out all 4 members within a certain time limit. This is because some of Andross's minions had planted a bomb inside a Cornerian base in an attempt to destroy it. If the timer runs out, the bomb goes off and the team has to evacuate, but if you successfully take down Starwolf in time, Fox is able to defuse the bomb and save the base. It's not a particularly hard mission, but the context of it does provide a bit of pressure, and you do feel the stakes when you're first playing through it. It makes the fight feel that bit more intense and lays the groundwork for the rivalry between Star Fox and Star Wolf really well. I said lays the groundwork there because this isn't necessarily the only time you'll run into Starwolf on your journey. If you don't manage to defeat them the first time round and are on the easy path by the penultimate mission, you'll re-encounter them on the Bolt's defense outpost where they act as a distraction from you taking out the core. Alternatively, if you get onto the hard route, you'll have to fight a much stronger Starwolf team on Venom. This fight is significantly harder than the first time you run into them for quite a few reasons. For one, they are way more aggressive this time and have much more durable ships which are resistant to charge shots. Then there's the fact that they've gotten a lot smarter since the first time you fought them. You see, if Wolf is following you and shooting at you from behind, one thing you can do to get him off your tail is a somersault. If you do this during the Katina mission, Wolf will say, "What the heck?" in confusion at what he just witnessed, but if you try the same trick on the rematch, you'll find that he's wizened up and actually pulls off a few somersaults of his own. The attention to detail here is fantastic, but it doesn't even stop there. Another great little detail is that each Starwolf member has their own rival on the Star Fox team. You've got the leaders, Fox and Wolf, the ace pilots, Falco and Leon, the veterans being Peppy and Pigma, and the incompetent ones, Slippy and Andrew. During the missions, the rivals always target each other, and this adds quite a bit of value to saving your teammates, as keeping them alive makes the Starwolf battles a lot easier. If you try to attempt the hard fight without any teammates, then you are in for a rough time, let me tell you. Another great thing about this game that the running conflict with Starwolf brings to the forefront is the characters. While they're all fairly basic in terms of personality, what makes them really stand out is their cheesy lines of dialogue. Throughout the missions in this game, there is a constant stream of one-liners coming out of this game's cast, and it is so good. So many of these lines have been permanently burned into my mind over the years, and some have become ingrained into mainstream meme culture. There's just something about the delivery that makes these little quips so iconic, from Falco's snide remarks to the screams of defeat from the bosses. I'd be lying if I said that a lot of these haven't snuck into my daily vocabulary or become in-jokes with friends and family. "I've got a present for you" has become a staple phrase with my siblings whenever we give each other something, for example. Some of my other favourites include, "You're good, but I'm better. My emperor, I failed you." And "Hey Einstein, I'm on your side," which implies Einstein is canon in the Star Fox universe. The more you know. The lines in this game perfectly convey each character's personality. You can clearly tell that Falco is meant to be arrogant, Peppy is wise and battle-hardened, and Fox is a confident leader. Alongside the main crew, you've also got a couple of side characters like Bill, a Cornerian general and Fox's childhood friend. You help him out on Katina, where you have to defend the planet from an enemy mothership. From here, you either go to Sector X if you fail, or Solar if you succeeded, but what I think is really cool is that Bill actually comes to help you out, regardless of where you end up. In Sector X, he helps you shoot some warp gates, and in Solar, he provides some healing items, which is especially helpful as you're constantly taking damage during that mission. The same also goes for Kat, who is Falco's girlfriend and helps you out on Zonus and then comes back in subsequent missions. I think this is a really cool feature, as it means that even if you do happen to visit the same planets on multiple different playthroughs, you can still have a different experience. The best example of this has to be Sector X for me, as there are so many ways it can play out. It's actually the only mission in the game which has 3 possible branches, one taking you onto the hard path, one onto the middle, and one onto the easy. See, what happens in that mission is that you eventually stumble across the boss, Spyborg, an unfinished and abandoned robot left searching for its creator, which is a really cool concept in itself. At one stage during the fight, Slippy decides that it's his time to shine and decides to take on the boss himself. Naturally, this of course ends in disaster after Slippy ends up getting completely destroyed and you have to make a diversion onto the planet where his ship gets smashed down towards. This can be avoided, however, if you manage to shoot down the boss before Slippy has a chance to attack. Doing so puts you on the medium path, so that accounts for 2 of the possible endings. So what about the third? Well, I mentioned earlier that there are a set of warp gates you can shoot about halfway through the mission. If you manage to open all of these, which is made a lot easier by having Bill to help you out, then you enter this weird looking warp zone. There's another one of these in an earlier mission, and both of them feel a little unsettling because of the music, visuals, and lack of dialogue from your teammates. There's no mission accomplished fanfare like usual either, with the team wordlessly jetting off at the end of the mission. It's quite jarring when you experience it for the first time, but still awesome regardless. This warp takes you straight onto Sector Z, which is probably the hardest mission in the game, so it's a rewarding feat to pull off. You know, I always hated Sector X as a kid because I could never save Slippy, but all of this has helped me come to appreciate it a lot more over time. There are just so many other fantastic missions in this game that I could talk about. You've got Area 6, where you're taking down the enemy's last lines of defense, one wave after another in an exhilarating battle. With each line that you breach, you can hear them getting more and more panicked over the transmissions until they finally play their last card in the form of a secret weapon. Then there's Macbeth, when you're in the Landmaster, chasing a train that seems to just go on forever. Eventually, you get to a point where you have a chance to shoot 8 switches to activate a track switch and divert the course of the train. Do this, and you're greeted with quite possibly the most satisfying cutscene in video game history. It's hard to talk about Star Fox 64 without mentioning the ending though, or rather, the endings. You see, if you end the game on the easy path, you'll reach the final planet, Venom, and fight what you think is Andross. However, when you defeat him, it's revealed that it was just a robot decoy and the real Andross is nowhere to be found. When the credits roll, you see his face in the distance and hear his ominous laugh, and that compels you to replay the game in search of the definitive ending. If you instead reach Venom via the hard route, you'll go through the first phase of the Andross fight as normal, except this time when you take him out, instead of being a robot, his true form is revealed. This is a great twist and makes for a pretty grueling but satisfying boss. However, the best part of this fight in my opinion is not the fight itself, but what happens immediately after. In one final effort to take Fox down once and for all, Andross self-destructs, causing a massive explosion and destroying the entire base. To escape, Fox has to navigate through a series of winding tunnels, many of which lead to complete dead ends. At this point, all hope may seem lost until this happens.
Don't ever give up, my son. Father?
Be it through desperation, hopelessness, or sheer willpower, Fox sees a vision of his father James McCloud who guides him through the tunnels. Everything about this moment is absolutely perfect, from the intensity of the music to the pressure of needing to keep up with James to even the small details like where he says never give up, trust your instincts. This is a phrase that comes up at several points in the game, specifically through Peppy, who was James's old teammate on the original Star Fox team, so it makes a lot of sense to hear it from him, and the repetition makes it all the more impactful. After weaving through the tunnels, Fox finally makes it out, barely escaping the explosions. The triumphant music kicks in, you see that mission accomplished screen one last time, and in a way, it's bittersweet. Andross is gone for good, sure, but after Fox emerges from the tunnel, he looks around wordlessly, but James is nowhere to be seen, because the odds are he was never there at all. The credits then roll as before, and I gotta say, the scene with the team running along in the sunset with the Great Fox rising up behind them and the music swelling up, that's powerful stuff, and it genuinely gives me chills every time. Now, with Andross nowhere to be seen this time, you know that your mission is truly accomplished. If I were to sum up Star Fox 64 in a word, it would be refined. Many would say that it's the peak of the franchise, and looking back, it's clear to see why. I loved this game growing up, and it's nice to see that it's still held in such high regard. However, as of late, it feels as if the Star Fox franchise has been stuck in a rut of trying to recapture the magic that made 64 so great. It's a shame, because I feel like there's so much potential, so much room to evolve the series, whilst preserving the integrity of previous entries, but hey, that's a story for another day. In my eyes, Star Fox 64 is as close to the perfect game as it gets. The gameplay is action-packed and every moment of every mission feels incredible. The campaign is infinitely replayable thanks to the scoring system and abundance of branching paths. The story is simple yet memorable, and the characters even more so. All of this blends together to create a truly special experience. And that, my friends, is the perfect simplicity of Star Fox 64.